This is going to be a good video about photo shoot prep. I'll be personally doing a shoot this year. It'll be my 6th shoot in 10 years and it's going to be my best one yet. So if your goal is to get in sub 10% body fat and you want real practical tips and advice on how to get there, then keep watching this video. Now, I'm just away with my family at the moment in the Lake District, so you can say I don't have my usual gear, my lighting, so I apologise for the lack of dramatic lighting, and I don't have my 3-point setup as normal. So I've got my iPhone, I've just got my mic, so yeah, apologies first off for that. Now, the video will discuss what is my plan for the next 20 weeks that I'm going to be following to get myself below 10% body fat. Now, bear in mind, I'm currently about 15% body fat, so I'm not super overweight or don't have like a huge belly or a lot of belly fat, but I do have still belly fat that I need to shift. Now, the purpose for the shoot is I want to basically put everything I've learned over a 10-year period, all the shoots I've done, and put into one big shoot this year. Now, the last week so this is week 2 of my prep, and let me just dive into what I've been doing. Now, before my prep, I was currently in maintenance mode. Like many guys, they're just training very hard, watching what they eat, eating relatively healthy, and I was the same, just training hard, eating healthy, but not tracking diligently, not in a calorie deficit like I was when I was in a photo shoot mode. Now, I've come out of maintenance and I'm now in a calorie deficit. What I've done is I've downloaded my Fitness Pal and I've started diligently tracking everything I eat and drink. Now, what I've done is I've switched over my mindset. This is so important and one of the biggest lessons for you if you're also looking to do a photo shoot or get crazy lean this year. And that's what I'm going to be doing, because I promise you, if you keep following my journey right until my 20th week, you're going to be seeing one of the leanest people on YouTube. I guarantee it. Naturally as well. No enhancements, no gear, absolutely nothing. This is all natural preparation that I'll be doing. I've always been natural and it always will. So I won't be using any fat burners. I won't be using anything to maintain muscle mass. It'll all be natural ways to diet properly, to train with the correct plan to manage muscle retention, but I won't be using any enhancements. I will be using some supplements, which I'll be explaining on the journey. So let me just briefly outline my plan, and then I'll get into a few mistakes that you might want to avoid early on in your journey. Now, my plan is this: so take myself out of maintenance into a deficit. I've successfully done that. I've been tracking my calories, and I'm sat currently around 2,500 calories. Now, my weight started at 80 kilos. I'm 5'8", and I'll be probably having to lose at least 7 or 8 kg to get to where I want to be. Maybe a little bit more. Let's see how I get on. Now, again, weight is not something that bothers me at all. I will be maintaining my weight as much as I can and retaining tissue. That's the goal, and I'll explain as I go through the journey how I'll be doing that, and I'll briefly outline here. But the goal is not to keep my weight high. So if you're thinking to yourself, or you've had a barrier before of, I can't lose weight, I'll lose my size, that's the wrong way to look at it. If you want to get very lean, incredibly lean, and I mean extra lean, you have to really put that to one side. Your size, whether you're 80 kilos or 90 kilos, you'll have to drop at least 7, 8 or 9 kg to get lean. I guarantee it. Now, so let's look at, so I'm in a deficit at the moment and I'm marginally hungry. Now, the mistake I generally see with guys and girls when they do want to lose body fat is they go too aggressive too early on. Now, I will be following a 20-week plan, and that is fairly intense, but it's not aggressive. Like I'm trying to lose 700 kilos in 8 or 9 weeks. I'm doing it over a sensible 20 weeks, maybe 16 weeks, and see how I feel. But what I'm doing is I'm looking at my food that I've been eating over the past 2 to 3 years on average, and it's been healthy foods, but there's been probably too much fat, too much good and bad fats, saturated and non-saturated fats, but too much fat in general, so too many calories, and that's obviously crept my body fat level up. I've been eating too many carbs, not been carb cycling as I should. So I'm away, like I mentioned, in the Lake District. I've just pulled back on my carbs. I'm not training today. I've not been training last few days because I've been away. So I pulled my carbs back. I just don't need them. That's carb cycling. I'll increase my protein. I'll probably keep it on the high side, and as I always do, and I will always keep my protein high. But as for fats, I will pull them back, and protein, I will pull them back too. Now, I'm not going to go too low with my macros. I'll give you a quick insight into what my macros will generally be. So my protein will be about 35 to 40%. Okay, I'll be having at least minimum 180 to 200 grams of protein a day, sometimes a little bit more if I'm training very hard, which I'll do, and I'll get into in a sec what my training is. But my protein is always about 180 to 200 grams of protein. Now, I will always have at least 40 to 45 grams, maximum 50 grams per meal. I like to spread my protein out throughout the day, so I like to have at least 4 meals a day. Okay, put 3 large meals and 1 medium snack. Now, I'll get into a second what that entails. Now, another mistake that I generally see with guys is they go too low on their carbs. They pull everything back. They stop eating carbs. But I'd challenge you on this. If you stop eating your carbs, how would you feel? I want you to write a comment below. If you just stopped eating your carbs, how would you feel in training, in daily life, work? If you've got a family, how would you feel running after your kids with no carbs? Because even though people may think that that's the key thing to do, pull that back on their carbs, we do need them in at least 35% per day. Maybe a little bit less when you're carb cycling. Like I mentioned, if you're away on holiday, you can go slightly low on your carbs, but then it's being really choosy on what carbs you choose, which I'll get into in a second, because not all carbs are created equal. So with your carbs, 35% would be a sweet spot. I generally would sit at that. My fat would be about 30%, 35, and I swing backwards and forwards between those two macros depending on where I am. If I'm away or if it's the weekend and I'm not working out, I'll slightly go higher fat and I'll pull back on my carbs. Now, what I generally do with my carbs are whole food sources, and all my foods in general are whole food sources. I'll stick a couple of my meals on here and you'll see that I keep my food as whole food as possible, as lean as possible. So I try to go for like grass-fed beef if I'm eating beef. I try to go for free-range chicken. I try to go for lean eggs. Now, that limits the amount of saturated fat that you're eating, and it allows you to control the calories. Because if you're overloading your plate on saturated fat, and you could control that and just try to get a healthier meat or fish, then this will save calories in the long run. And if you've got a target like I have, around about 2,500 or less, depending on your size, you may need to be really cautious of how much fat that you consume, because fat is hidden in many foods, mainly meats and fish, like I mentioned. Fish is not such a big issue because it's poly, mono, and unsaturated fats. So it's a good fat, but it's still fat and it's still calorie dense. Now, when it's saturated fats, and that's mainly in like red meats, burgers, steak, etc., you've got to be aware of that. So I personally don't eat a lot of red meat every week. I do have probably, I'd say, maybe half a kg of red meat per week, 500 grams, let's say. The majority of my meats are lean chicken, lean pork, and fish. I'll eat hake, cod, and salmon. Probably a couple of times a week I'll eat salmon. So you can see I'm having a good mixture of protein sources, and I do have some plant-based protein sources, so I do have 2 scoops of plant-based vegan protein every single day. I have that every morning as a protein-based smoothie. I just find that works well for me. So a good mixture of plant-based and animal-based protein sources I'd highly recommend. But the majority of your foods should be whole food based. You shouldn't be choosing foods based off convenience. Now what I mean by this is, for example, you get a chicken breast, fresh in a packet, lean, skinless. Or you get chicken breast with breaded on it, or battered. As you can see, mainly the breaded one, right? Or let's say you get a lean piece of fish, and frozen, or you get a piece of fish with batter on. As you can see, the batter is going to be more calorie dense. It's convenient, right? And it probably has got some a lot more additives, more processed, more calorific though. Whereas the hake, you've got very lean amount of protein, but very low amount of carbs and additives there. So it's very low processed. So just bear that in mind when you're choosing for convenience. It's the same with meats, and it's the same with carbohydrates. For example, as I'm leaning out, I cut right down on processed carbs, such as breads, rice, pastas, tortilla wraps, noodles, stuff like that is gonna pretty much give me the quick fix to cook and easy to cook, but they're not as nutrient dense as sweet potato, which is a staple for my day-to-day existence at the minute. Lentils, quinoa. These are all great sources of carbohydrates that I personally will be eating. Brown rice, but I try not to eat too much rice because I find it just doesn't fill me up as much. Because as I'm more in a calorie deficit, I'm getting hungrier, and I'm feeling like the carbs that I was eating before, like breads, noodles, stuff like that, when I was maintaining, they're not going to fill me up anymore. So I need a carb that's filling. And food in general, your food's got to be filling. It's got to have what's called high nutrient density. If it doesn't have high nutrient density, then it's not going to fill you up, and you're going to struggle to stay within a calorie deficit. So that is my key take home, is high dense nutrient foods. I'll pop a little list on the show notes of what foods I would generally eat, and you may be eating them already, but it's getting the structure right and switching you from maintenance to a fat loss phase, a calorie deficit. So week 1, I've ramped up my cardio. I'm doing twice a day cardio, and I'm doing very low steady state cardio, not intense cardio, steady state cardio. And I'll talk about this more with my next video, which will be really in depth into training. So this was mainly more the nutrition side of things, what I've optimized with my food, adjustments I've made. And if this video resonates with you at all, guys, do not hesitate to subscribe, because I'll be putting out regular videos, and it'll be talking exactly about how I am doing, the progress I've made, and how I'm feeling from 15% body fat right down to 8% body fat, which is what I'm aiming for. And you'll see my actual journey and transition from feeling like I'm maintaining to shredded. So you'll see my journey. So don't miss a video. Hit the subscribe button, click the notifications, and I'll be posting a video every single week on my journey. All right. So if you've got any questions though, feel free to pop them below. I'm absolutely happy to help anyone. I'm an online coach. I specifically work with people online on this type of goal, and people who I work with are mainly people who are stuck, who cannot seem to get past where they're at. Maybe people who have been training for a while, and this could be you. You might have been training for a few years, or you might have just started, or you may have been training for 10 years, and you're just stuck where you are. Get in touch with me if you feel you need some help. You can even just have a quick call, and I'll give you some free advice and tips on your situation. You can just give me a quick insight, and I'll give you some free information and tips. But hope this one has helped you guys, and if you're right at the beginning of your journey, I hope this one can just plant the seed for you and start trickling you along. So just remember, just to recap, if you wanted to lean out, you've got to go from maintenance to a deficit. Make sure the deficit is not too aggressive, If you was eating at about 4,000 calories before, drop down about 1,000. I was eating about 4,000 on average. I dropped down to about 2,500, and I'm just in and around there. Okay, I'm not too hungry at that. I'm just okay. I'm tracking my food diligently, and I'm basically fully accountable of my food, and I know what's coming in, not know what's coming out, because I'm doing my cardio, and I just feel like that amount of calories is right for me. But you may need to start higher, or you may need to go lower. It depends on several factors, which I won't get into too much in this video. I'll cover that later on. But anyhow, again, apologies for the not the perfect lighting. I know it's not my usual setup, but I'm away and I wanted to shoot this video before I got back home, and I'll hopefully get it out to you guys straight away. All right, guys. Speak to you soon. Have a great day. Bye for now.